stepped toward the door, wrapped in her long coat. With her face partially covered, I came behind her and gently took her arm. She turned quickly, reflexes honed by years of danger, but seeing my relaxed expression, she lowered her shoulders slightly. And where do you think you're going? The sun's still out, and besides, were we supposed to look for your friend first? Or do you want to face a legendary bloodline while nursing a sunburn? True. She tilted her head, caught between annoyance and resignation, then finally let out a short, almost inaudible laugh. You're a pain. A pain that just saved your skin. The carrier pulled off her hood again and dropped onto the couch. With a sigh, I couldn't quite place fatigue, relief, or resignation. I sat beside her at a respectful distance. There was no need to fake emotional distance. The air between us was already thick with everything left unsaid. Okay. So how old are you exactly? You didn't give me a straight number last time. She smiled, glancing at me sideways. I think I did. I'm 186. Sometimes it's hard to believe you're sitting here talking to me, helping me, that you didn't kill me the moment you suspected I was onto you. The carrier crossed her legs, resting one arm on the edge of the couch. And I still don't understand why you didn't give up. Most humans, even the strong ones, break. But you, with everything you lost, you're still here full of fury, yet you didn't kill out of rage. You wait, you think. That's rare. Humans are fascinating creatures. Don't think I'm that noble. If I had Azalea in front of me, I wouldn't hesitate a second, and it wouldn't be pretty. Here whispered, more to herself than to me. No, it wouldn't. We sat in silence for a while. Outside, the light kept filtering through the cracks, but inside the shelter, time seemed to move slower. Did you ever have someone? I asked, almost without meaning to. The carrier slowly turned her face to me. Yes, a long time ago, when I still believed I could have a life like yours. It was a mistake and he paid dearly for it. Okay. I lowered my gaze, feeling an uncomfortable pain in my chest. Sorry. She nodded, without drama, without tears, with absolute suspicious calm. And you? She shifted the topic with a slight smile. What was your life like before all this? Who were you? I'm just an ordinary guy. Teacher, father, husband. Drink coffee in the morning and read bedtime stories at night. Never imagined I'd be at war with something older than history itself. And yet here you are. And yet... Kara leaned back further, closing her eyes for a moment. I don't know if we'll win, but if I'm going to fall, I'd rather do it with someone who still remembers what it means to love. Huh? I looked at her in silence, and for once didn't know what to say. Outside, the sun began to sink, dyeing the city in golden shadows. There were still monsters to face, but for now we allowed ourselves a few minutes of humanity. The carrier sighed deeply, and for a moment I saw her differently. Not as a warrior I had met, nor as the ancient creature who carried centuries of secrets, but as someone human, or at least someone trying to remember what it felt like. I lied. She said in a low, almost guilty voice. I've never been with anyone. I looked at her, frowning slightly, surprised by her confession. Never? She shook her head, lowering her gaze to her own hands, as if the conversation was hard to hold. Not with a man, at least. Not because of what it means physically, but for the other thing. The intangible part. The part that leaves you exposed. The part that forces you to trust. I'm confused. I don't really know how to put it into words, because I haven't fully understood it. I thought vampires weren't afraid of anything. I remembered, not mockingly, but with genuine curiosity. She let out a short, slightly bitter laugh. We fear many things. The light, yes. Death, some of us. What really scares us is connection. Because once you feel something real for someone, you stop being free. In some way, a part of you always stays with that person. And that's a risk many of us prefer not to take. Makes sense. Stay silent for watching her eyes drift to some corner of the shelter, maybe seeing a memory of she never lived, or a possibility she always refused. Harriet blinked and looked at me. There was a vulnerability in her eyes, but also strength. And honestly, that isn't given easily. Now I'm here, sitting, telling you this. I don't know if that means I've changed, or if I'm making a mistake for the first time in centuries. Well, technically it's only been a century. But I'm tired of being afraid of everything I can't control. Welcome to the club, I replied with a half smile. She smiled too, this time without sarcasm, just that strange tenderness that appears when two people recognize each other in their own fractures. Don't tell Emma. Or your weapons. Or your mirrors. Deal. And then, without more words, we stayed there, letting the silence speak for us, while the sun at last began to fall behind the buildings, granting us permission to return to the dark. The real dangers and answers awaited. So then, I said as I shifted slightly on the couch, noticing how the dust was thickening through the windows of the shelter. What's Emma like? Kara looked up as if the question caught her off guard, though her lips soon curled slightly, an expression hard to read, a mix of affection and irony and something that looked like respect. Emma, she repeated as if chewing the name before speaking. She's complicated, not because she's difficult, but because she's too honest. She won't tell you what you want to hear, ever, and that sometimes gets her into trouble. Okay. Stay quiet, giving her space. She's not like me, not elegant or distant. Emma is fire. She continued, looking directly at me, now her eyes softly glowing in the dim light. Impulsive, passionate. She doesn't measure her words. She says things with a clarity that's uncomfortable, but that you also need. Her rage is transparent. She hates you, you'll know it. She respects you too. Does she respect you? Lucaria smiled, this time openly. In her own way. I'm kind of an older sister to her, or an annoying aunt. She always said I look like I walked out of a museum, a geek. But when someone shakes her, she always comes back to me. That says a lot. I nodded, imagining that figure, a young vampire with raw soul, different from Lucaria, but connected by something stronger than blood. And is she good in the fight? She's excellent, she replied without hesitation. She doesn't have my blood, but she has instinct. When she fights, she forgets everything, even herself. It's not just strength, it's conviction. Okay. And that makes her dangerous to the circle. That's where our family was marked, because they didn't bow to their heads. And do you trust her? Lucaria lowered her gaze, thoughtful, with my eyes closed. Considering her words were so direct, there was nothing more to add. I leaned back slightly, crossing my arms, imagining the moment we'd meet her. I didn't know if Emma would greet us with warmth or daggers in her eyes, but the Lucaria spoke of her like that, then she was exactly the kind of ally we needed. The kind of person unafraid to set the world on fire, for the right reasons. Lucaria looked at me for a moment in silence, studying my expression as if trying to see past the hardened face I carried from the start. And you? Do you have friends? Someone you trust, even a little? I don't know. I used to, I guess. I had coworkers, neighbors I bumped into, a couple of childhood friends, good people, normal people, but they all disappeared when everything fell apart. So they weren't actually good, trustworthy friends. I paused, lowered my gaze to the floor, as the words weighed heavy on my tongue. Some tried to stay during the first months. They offered help, brought me food, invited me to talk. But over time, they left. Guess they didn't know how to deal with me. Maybe they didn't want to see themselves and what could happen to them too. I guess. And when I started searching on my own, when I started going to dark places, asking questions to dangerous people, that's when they really disappeared. Like pain was contagious. It is, she finally said, her voice low. People flee from it like a disease. I don't blame them, but that made it clear to me that I was alone. That if I wanted answers, if I wanted justice or vengeance or whatever it is I'm chasing, I have to do it with my own hands. So I'm the first in a long time. I looked at her out of the corner of my eye with a mix of irony and resignation. You're the first who didn't vanish when I told the truth, even though you're technically the creature of the night. Technically. And you, besides Emma, do you have anyone? Your story's a lot more like mine than you think. There was someone else, but I lost them. For a few seconds, no more words were needed. We both knew what it was like to live without a safety net, without backup, to walk the edge every day, not knowing if there would be ground or a void at the end. But in that moment, even if we didn't say it out loud, I knew we weren't so alone anymore. She slowly turned her face toward me with an expression somewhere between curious and serious. Are we gonna go see Emma? She rested an elbow on the back of the couch, crossing one leg with formal elegance. I feel like since the sun went down some that we'd go see Emma, but I guess we're just not ready yet. How do you know you can trust me? Or at least, how do you know I won't kill you in your sleep? You could have already done it. If you wanted to kill me, Lucaria, you would have done it already. She narrowed her eyes, as if evaluating the answer from multiple angles. So sure of that? 100%. I replied, leaning forward slightly, elbows on my knees. I never saw you pretend weakness and definitely not lie to me when it would have been easier to feed me sweet answers. If you wanted to get rid of me, you'd done it at the party, or on the street, or right here on this couch. What party? She observed me in silence for a few seconds, as if looking for a crack in my conviction, but she didn't find one. You trust your instincts. I trust logic. And logic says you wouldn't take all these risks if your goal was to eliminate me. You'd be much subtler, far less patient. She smiled, not the wild grin of mockery, but something calmer, almost respectful. Not many humans understand that. I'm not like most. No. She nodded. You're not. There was a pause. One of those that doesn't make things awkward but lets the words breathe. And you? I asked, keeping my eyes on her. Do you trust me? Takaria lowered her gaze for a moment, then raised it again, with certainty. I trust that you won't stop, not even if it costs you everything. And sometimes, that's all we need to win a war. We stay like that, beneath the dimming light of the dying sunset. Outside, night was taking over, but inside the refugee, two broken souls were slowly finding an improbable balance. A silent pact born of scars and shared rage. She watched me more closely now, her dark, deep eyes settled on the hardened lines of my face, on the marks of insomnia, and when I held myself up even though the world had already collapsed on me. Okay. She tilted her head, intrigued and with a naked honesty in her voice, asked, Tell me the truth. Why do you keep going? Why do you keep fighting if you know you're no match for a vampire? Because love for family has no bounds. Even the weakest of us could break you with one hand. I kept my gaze fixed on the floor for a second, lifted it to meet hers. No resentment, no theatrics, just a dangerous calm. The kind possessed by those who have already lost everything. Because I'm no longer afraid of death. Karia blinked, surprised by the clarity in my tone. Just like that. I nodded slowly. You took everything from him. Life took my wife from me, my daughter. They drove away an entire existence without laying a hand on me. It left me alive, but hollow. What more can it do? Take my life? Let it try. Nothing left to lose. Hell yeah, brother. She looked at me in silence. There was no self-pity in my words, just truth. A raw truth, not said to impress, but because there were no masks left to wear. Most people break when they reach that point. Or they give up. You did because something else? I became a question without an answer, an echo. A flaw in the plans of those who think they can do whatever they want without consequence. Kara smiled, not mockingly. It was a slow smile. Melancholic? Maybe that's why I didn't kill you the first time I saw you. Maybe somewhere inside me I understood you. Or maybe you already knew we needed each other. Could be. But what I do know is that sometimes the ones who no longer feel fear are the most dangerous of all. I nodded without a word because I knew, because I felt it. And because deep down I hoped that fact, and only that, would be enough to tip the scales when the darkness finally came to collect everything. I furrowed my brow slightly, rested my elbows on my knees, and I looked at her with a mix of doubt and challenge. Now I'm turning the question back on you, Takaria. Why do you need me? If you know a human is no match for a vampire, what are you really expecting from me? Maybe she could turn you so y'all can take them all together. She held my gaze for a moment without answering. She slowly leaned back against the couch, crossing her arms. A long sigh hit her lips, and as she exhaled, her expression turned more serious. There was no smile, no irony, just a kind of meditated resignation. Because even if you don't like hearing it, you have something most of us no longer do. You have an incorruptible will. You stand on your rage, on your pain, and you don't bend. I don't know many vampires who can do that without becoming monsters, without becoming like them. I said nothing. I waited. Lowered her gaze for a moment, as if contemplating a line she wasn't sure she should cross. And because if we're going to do this, if we're going to face the blood circle, you'll need more than rage, more than human weapons, more than memory. You're going to need real power. The silence in the refugee grew thicker. Even the street just beyond the wall seemed to stop breathing. Are you suggesting that you consider the conversion? She said, looking at me again with absolute seriousness. I never forced it on you, but if at some point you realize that this body, this human flesh, won't withstand what's coming, we need to know that option exists. So she's offering it to us. It might be something worth his while. I looked at her as if she uttered a hearsay. But I did mock her. I didn't respond right away. Neither Dikaria didn't speak on impulse. There's a high chance his family is no longer human. She, on the other hand, let the weight of her words fall on its own. Not all converts lose their humanity. But you have to be willing to pay the price. Because there is one. There always is. I leaned back slowly. And though my expression remained hard, the idea had settled, and it wasn't going to disappear so easily. No, I said firmly, sharply, as if the very thought churned my guts. I'm not doing it. I won't become that. She looked at me silently for a few seconds, then lowered her gaze, let a quiet sigh, one that held no surprise, only the way of the inevitable. Maybe he would do it if it was worth saving his family. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do to save your family. But you do lose a lot in the process. I say it because you won't survive if you stay like this. Just another one, fragile, human. I clenched my jaw, slid from the couch, and walked a few steps through the shelter, just to need a distance between my body and those words. Between my blood and that fate. Do you know what you're asking? I said at last, turning around with eyes blaze. Do you know what that would mean for me? Yes, I know exactly what it means for you. That's why I'm not forcing you. It didn't speak. I just breathed hard, fist clenched. But what's coming won't pit you against young vampires or wandering monsters. She's being smart, actually. You'll face the worst. Vampires that existed before the language you're speaking was even born. Creatures who know no logic, domination, cruelty. And I'll say it plainly, but no sugarcoating. You'll die if you face them with your blood intact. Silence returned, heavy, unbearable. So then what? Are you telling me I have no choice? Dikaria stood as well, looking at me directly. It's not what she's saying. You have one, but you won't like it. I narrowed my eyes wary. If you're going to do it, it can't be with just anyone. Not with a lesser vampire, not with a turned one. It has to be with the purest vampire we can find, one with ancient lineage, real power. Because if not, you'll break. You'll go mad or worse, become a tool for the enemy. And forget it? I spat as if it burned my mouth. I'm not becoming one of you. I won't drink blood. I won't live for centuries. Watch everything rot around me. Courier didn't argue. She didn't pressure. She just looked at me with a mix of sadness and understanding. I'm not asking you to decide now. Just when the time comes, remember this. Humans die for what they believe. But the ones who survive decide who's worth abandoning humanity for. I didn't answer. I lowered my gaze, rage burning in my chest, and a dark seed newly planted in my soul. I don't think it's that deep. Oh, I dropped something. Hold on. Y'all can... The air in the shelter had grown thick and dense. Let's see. Are we gonna leave at some point? Like, holy hell. We need to leave and go talk to Emma. I looked up, still tense, one eyebrow raised. Come again? What you're imagining. Coffins, fangs, blood dripping down hallways, bodies hanging from ceilings. It's not really like that, or at least it doesn't have to be. I watched her without speaking, processing. I don't feed on humans. Haven't in centuries. But you're 186. A century is 100 years. So a century. But in our blood. And that sustains you? More than you think. It's not the same, of course. It doesn't give the same power, the same intensity. But it maintains the body, and more importantly, it maintains the soul. Little is left of it. I didn't know if she was being serious or just trying to calm me. There was something in her voice that didn't sound false. There was no pressure in her words, just an option, an alternative I hadn't considered. So is it possible to live as a vampire and not become a monster? It's hard, like living among wolves without becoming one, but yes, it's possible. Many more of us tried than you would imagine. The world though doesn't hear their stories because their stories stayed still, silent. The thoughts kept spiraling, but now with a different tone. It wasn't acceptance, not even doubt. It was the first crack in the iron wall of my conviction. Karia looked at me with a touch of tenderness hidden behind her usual hardness. I'm not telling you this is to convince you. I'm telling you so you'll know that if you ever reach the edge, not everything is lost on the other side. Vampiric feeding isn't just a matter of hunger. It's not like eating a piece of bread when you're hungry. It's something deeper, more primal. It affects body, mind, and spirit. And depending on what you take and how you take it, it can have a very different consequences. She turned toward me, arms crossed. There are 3 main ways of feeding, and none of them are just drink blood, like the cheap myths say. First, there's direct human blood, the most powerful, the most addictive too. It's like a drug, it gives immediate energy, enhanced strength, heightened senses, accelerated healing, usual. But the more often you consume it, the harder it is to stop. If you take too much from a single person, you kill them. Sometimes in a slow, horrible way. Makes sense? I didn't look away, listening carefully. Then there's animal blood. Most vampires consider it a weak alternative, and in some ways it is. It doesn't provide as much strength or sharpen the senses as much. But it's stable, consistent, and most importantly, it doesn't make you lose control. Many of our kind use it to stay sane, to avoid becoming beasts. I'm one of them. She paused briefly, as if reflecting on her own words. The third option is the most controversial, voluntary exchange. When the human offers their blood knowingly and the bond isn't forced. That creates something different. It doesn't just feed, it connects spiritual bond, even mental. Some vampires live exclusively from that, but it's dangerous. Because if the bond breaks badly, it can harm both parties, and it can become emotional dependence, almost obsessive. And some prefer that. The oldest ones, sometimes, those who no longer want to kill. Or those who fall in love, though they always end badly. And the noble vampires, how do they feed? Carrier side. The aristocrats don't get their hands dirty. They have servants, retainers, human harvests, kept docile with magic or drugs so they don't rebel. They don't hunt. They don't feel guilt. For them, feeding is a status act, even one of beauty. They choose humans like they choose wine. Some don't even feed out of need anymore, just pleasure or boredom, a centuries-old custom they can't let go of. I guess that makes sense. Disgusting. It is. That's why many of us end up breaking away from it all. And that's why Emma and I are at war, because we understood it doesn't have to be this way. I stayed quiet for a long time. The pieces of the image I had of vampires were rearranging. They were still dark, yes, dangerous, but also fractured, divided. As if what defined them wasn't the blood they drank, but the choice of how to drink it. Besides, pure-blood vampires don't just feed on anyone. Not always, at least. Special? Yes, people with certain blood traits. Some call them rich blood, others carriers. They're more common than it seems, but few know about them. Most come from ancient, forgotten lineages, ethnicities that were persecuted or absorbed over time. People marked by particular conditions, and one of them is polycythemia? Isn't that a blood disorder? Medically, yes. Okay. It's a condition where a body produces too many red blood cells. In humans, it can cause problems. Clots, high blood pressure, discomfort. But for a vampire, it's a delicacy. Their blood is thicker, more nutritious, more energetic. It has a concentration of life we can't ignore. And you can identify someone like that. I can smell them. We can also feel it when we touch them. There's something in them, a different vibration, like their body is too alive. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Some vampires hunt them obsessively. There are clans dedicated solely to tracking those family lines, generation after generation. And what do they do to them? Kara lowered her gaze for a second. They turn them into companions, into bonds. The older vampires take them as exclusive sources, sometimes as lovers, sometimes as prisoners. But others create pacts, real bonds. Because with that blood, the ties grow stronger, they become psychic, even emotional. A vampire bonded to a carrier is stronger, faster, more lucid. And if the bond is genuine, almost indestructible. I looked away, uncomfortable. Sounds like slavery. It is, in many cases. That's why I'm not justifying it. I'm telling you so you understand how our world works. So you're not surprised if you come across one of them? Because believe me, you will. Were you ever with one? Karia held her gaze for a few seconds, then shook her head. No, I never wanted to. Never let myself fall into that. But I saw what it does. I saw how it changed the vampire. For better or for much worse. I rested a hand on the wall, feeling the weight of everything I was learning. So, vampire power doesn't just depend on age or lineage. No, it also depends on the bond, on who they connect with, on what they choose to drink. There are old vampires who die depending on the wrong blood, and young ones who rose because of a single well-chosen bond. She looked at me firmly. The vampire world doesn't revolve solely around blood. It revolves around what blood represents. And that, darling, is power, desire, and destiny, all at once. And not everything comes down to lineage or blood either. The courier added, walking slowly across the room. Artifacts? Ancient objects created by alchemists, priests, hunters, even by vampires themselves centuries ago. Objects that contain power, not simple weapons. They're catalysts, amplifiers. Some bond with the welder, strengthen them, protect them, or even alter their nature. Others outright corrupt them. I crossed my arms, thoughtful. You mean things like the spear of Longius? Harry smiled. Exactly, the spear that pierced Christ's side. Many believe it was destroyed or lies in some European museum, but no. That spear is real, and it's in the possession of a vampire. A very, very old one, a circle guardian who uses it as both a symbol and weapon. You have no idea what it can do in its hands. I frowned, astonished. What other artifacts exist? Many. Some are lost, others circulate among clans. For example, there is a black mirror that does not reflect the viewer, but reveals the true intentions of whoever looks into it. Vampire judges used it before the Eternal Wars. A reliquary sealed with Inquisitor bone, capable of absorbing vital energy just by opening. A dagger made from the fang of a firstborn, capable of piercing any magical shield. And a rosary carved from the wood of a cursed tree, which can repel even an ancient vampire if wielded by someone with true faith. I absorbed each word as if it were a lost piece of puzzle I was only beginning to understand. And all of those are in the hands of vampires? In most cases, yes, because they spent centuries hunting these objects, guarding them, destroying those who possess them. Not out of need, out of fear, because they know there are artifacts capable of truly killing them. Then, is it possible to confront them with one of those? It is possible, but it's not easy. They're not in the shop waiting to be bought. They're hidden, protected, cursed in some cases, and each one has a price. Do you have one? The courier smiled, but it was not a joyful smile. I have one, implanted under my skin, but it's not offensive. It was given to me by someone before they died. It allows me to sense corrupted blood, even if it's sealed by centuries of magic. It's useful for tracking, not for fighting. And any offensive ones, do you know where to get one? She turned toward me, her gaze darkening. Perhaps, but if we go after one, there's no turning back. Going after an artifact is like declaring war on the ancients, or on the circle, on those who won't tolerate the human even speaking their names. I crossed my arms, eyes fixed on her. Then let's start making enemies. I'm already used to it. The sun was slowly fading over the rooftops, tinting the sky a dirty orange as if even the day were tired of existing. The air was dense and humid, and the shadows. Shadows began lengthening in the alleys as we walked in silence through a forgotten part of town. I kept my hand near my weapon, always tense. Karia beside me seemed to float, calm but alert, her dark coat covering her body like a second skin. We're close. It's a few blocks ahead, in an abandoned building. We use those kind of places to stay unnoticed. Humans don't care about what looks ruined. I nodded in silence, looking both ways carefully. A few seconds passed before I broke the silence. I thought sunlight was lethal to you. I said it inquisitively without looking at her. Carly let out a small nasal laugh. That's another pretty myth movies gave us. The truth is, the sun doesn't kill us instantly, but it weakens us a lot. Our skin burns, our senses cloud. If we stay exposed too long, we can suffer severe internal burns. It's as if the body resists existing under their light, if the blood screams to return to the shadows. So you can move during the day? Yes, but not without consequences. Younger ones sometimes risk it, but the ones don't even try. There are formulas, special cloaks, certain protective artifacts, but nothing is perfect. The sun doesn't kill, but it humiliates us. And you? I handle it better than many. But I don't like it. I feel naked, vulnerable, exposed. That's why I avoid going out until twilight begins. I noticed. Here I thought you were just dramatic. Kara looked at me sidelong, one eyebrow raised. Vampires are dramatic. We don't choose it. We've lived too long not to radicalize everything a bit. I think I probably messed that up. And yet I can't get used to walking with one. Nor can I get used to walking with someone who doesn't smell fear. That's unusual. We stay silent a moment longer. It's almost night, and the world seemed to fade behind us as we approached the threshold of something new, but unknown. Oh boy. Putting my grip on the gun, eyes fixed on the entrance. And let's begin. She moved forward naturally. I knocked on the door 3 times with her knuckles, a slow but firm rhythm. I looked around suspiciously. The building appeared abandoned for years, yet the air felt heavy as if someone or something was watching us from within. Not a minute passed. The door creaked from the inside, and the female figure appeared with absolute calm. Her movements were feline, slow but precise. The dim light revealed a beautiful face, though not in the Karia's delicate sense. Her eyes were almost blood red, and beneath them were subtle shadows, signs of ancient fatigue, more emotional than physical. Her hair was pulled back, pragmatically, revealing a sharp, less ethereal face. There was no softness in her, only determination, and yet the beauty persisted, as if even her rage or sadness couldn't entirely strip it away. So you're Emma, famous wolfing. Wait, hold on. I read that wrong. You're the famous hunter. Yep. She said it in a grave voice, without a trace of curtsy, sizing me up. I didn't realize I was so famous. Famous enough that we risked opening a door for you. The Karia smiled softly, almost amused by her friend's tone. Don't be so cold, Emma. Don't bite just yet. I don't like bony ones full of scars. She replied, though not hostile, more tired. He's a man who wants to destroy the blood circle, even if he doesn't know it fully yet. Emma looked at me again, this time with more than calculation in her gaze. There was recognition, as if she had read my story more times than she was willing to admit. Welcome. Come in. But leave your prejudices at the door. They weigh more than your weapons. Okay. I watched her a few seconds longer, assessing her tone, her posture, her words. Then I crossed the threshold without speaking. I knew that from that moment on, there would be no turning back. Went down a long hallway, walls covered in dampness and faded graffiti. The smell of confinement faded with each step, replaced by something more subdued, more cared for. When we reached the back door, she unlocked it naturally, as if it were a daily routine, a ritual. Inside, the contrast was immediate. The apartment was thoroughly clean, every piece of furniture in place with surgical precision. The gray matte walls were decorated with old paintings, black and white photos, some maps, and a large bookshelf filled with books. A soft incense aroma floated in the air, enough to notice, not to irritate. I stood at the entrance, arms crossed, taking it all in silently. Oh man, why am I so... Imagine something more fitting to your style. She barely turned her head and smiled with subtle irony. And that will be the first of many mistakes if you want to understand how we live. Arya walked behind, a more relaxed expression as if she already knew the place. She sat without ceremony in one of the dining chairs, crossing her legs. She's right. Emma may seem fierce, but she's actually obsessively orderly. I prefer to say I'm functional. Well, let's get to the point. If we're going to work together, I want to know what comes next. Emma leaned on the table, her expression now serious. First, we need to establish a target. We know the circle has several meeting points, but if we go straight in, they'll tear us apart. They have eyes everywhere, and allies even in local governments. We need to weaken them, cut their connections, slowly. There's a name that came up recently. The card interlaced her fingers. An artifact tracker, a human. He works as an intermediary between exiled vampires and circle members. If we find him, he can give us locations, names, transport routes. They call him Kyle. No one knows if that's his real name. He operates in the old district's port area. Only does business in places sealed with glyphs, which means he's more than a curious human. He has protection. And the idea would be, what? Negotiate with him? Interrogate him. And if he doesn't cooperate, eliminate him. Okay. Looked at both vampires, one after the other, noting how their faces spoke with the expression of those who had lived too much. And yet, they were human, in their own way. So the plan is simple. We find Khalil, locate him, corner him, and if he can lead us to someone in the circle, begin to bleed that structure from the inside. That's right. Welcome to the hunt. No. It's created to attack now. We don't have half the power we need to face the circle head on. Going for one of their contacts unprepared would be a death sentence. Emma narrowed her eyes, brow faintly furrowed. And what do you propose exactly? We sit and wait? I propose we get smart. This isn't an action movie. They have allies, resources, centers of advantage. We have a dusty shelter, a couple weapons, and 2 young vampires. If we're going to survive, we need more. Power, stability, information. You don't attack a castle by throwing the stones at the gate. Not wrong. I didn't show displeasure but curiosity. There's a slight glint in them, as if she wasn't just hearing criticism, but a strategy that could work. So what's the first step for you? She asked softly, letting Emma sip her glass to calm her impulses. Find real allies, human, vampires, whatever. People with motive, with wounds, like you. We're not going to win this war in a week. We the network, structure, support, our own circle, if you will. The Hunter's Circle. Sounds like a cult. I don't care what it sounds like. I care that it works. Vikaria nodded slowly, crossing her arms on the table. It's risky, but also logical. If we build something more solid, something they don't see coming, we could strike where it hurts most. And how do we recruit? Put up posters? Blog posts? No, we'll start with the marginalized, those who already know darkness. Those who saw something no one believed. Those who carry scars and hatred like ours. So we're talking about building a resistance. Silent, hidden like the old hunter's orders. Yes. And this time, we do it right. Silence returned to the apartment. Dense but not dense. It was a silence that forms before something big begins to be built. The kind of silence that precedes war. The car remained silent for a few seconds, processing my words as if rummaging through old memories, routes forgotten by history. Then her eyes rose slowly to meet mine, with that strange glint that seemed to blend memory and mystery. You mentioned the Eric before. She spoke in a low voice, barely a whisper. The ancient Celtic vampires. I looked at her attentively and nodded. Yes, I read in the old text they said that they hid underground ruins, protected their lineage, despised by the vampire wars. And if they still exist, the guard's voice grew firmer. They'd be a solid option. They're closed, proud, and powerful. They don't care about the human world. But if we speak to them of the circle, we tell them vampiric corruption is devouring everything they once defended, they might listen. Emma scoffed, skeptical, crossing her arms. Or they kill us on sight for stepping into their domain. Did you forget what happened to Gavan? Gavan was an arrogant brute who insulted their temple. We're not that. We have a cause and blood on the line. You think we can locate them? Maybe. Tilted her head slightly. There are traces, certain patterns in the north, in Yoda's lands. I could track the trail if I had the right maps. It's not easy, but it's possible. And if they're not there, if they no longer exist. Himla the bitter laugh. Then there's the option of Varel. The name hung in the air for a few seconds, like a soft poison. Varel is a vampire, pure, ancient. One of the oldest still walking among us. He's not aligned with the blood circle, but he doesn't oppose them directly either. He's a balance, an excellent actor, but he has power. A lot. Emma leaned forward, eyes locked on mine. Varel gives nothing for free. Everything he offers, he takes, and not always something you can give back. He's a player, a calculator. If we go to him, we might gain strength, knowledge, even artifacts. But the price? The price could be your soul. I crossed my arms, thoughtful. 2 routes, both uncertain. One went into shadow the forgotten pride, the other into a pact with someone who needs no reason to destroy. What if we try both? Eric first, then Varel, if we fail. We send a signal to Eric, and meanwhile, speak to Varel. That forces us to accept immediately. Varel looked at me, approvingly. Now we'll be playing both sides. Risky, but smart. Emma grunted slightly, but nodded. You need to decide. Which one do you go for first? The death sleeping beneath the earth, or the demons smiling in the darkness? You go for Eric. There's even the slightest chance they still exist. Hiding out there, we'll find them. I can't trust deals with monsters who negotiate with darkness. I'd rather touch the cold earth of an old lineage than give part of myself to someone like Varel. Kara watched me with a mix of pride and surprise. It's not common to see that much resolve in a human. She stood with elegance, nodding with conviction. Then we travel north to the heart of silence, where the ancient world still breathes beneath the stones. Emma clicked her tongue, visibly uncomfortable with the idea, but didn't object. I hope you know what you're doing. Those celts aren't bedtime stories. They're rituals, guardians, and secrets that could break you more than any modern vampire. I've been broken for a long time. I'm not worried about completely falling apart. Then pack your things. We're leaving right now. The journey starts now, and hopefully, in those forgotten ruins, we'll find something worth it, or someone who listens. Alright. We'll stop and save here. No, we gotta save. Almost didn't save. That would have been bad. Alright. That is Vaniar, part 2. It's a bit more talking than, I guess, some of the other adult visual novels that I've played, but, you know, I like it. I like it so far. Hopefully y'all feel the same. And yeah, I'll catch y'all next part.